Yeah! Welcome to another episode of Artco Drone Solutions. We've got a great show today. Unfortunately, there's been a little change in the show today. Um, Greg Khunert couldn't make it tonight because he's got internet issues over there down under. So we've got a great guest tonight. We've got Mel from 400 AGL. I'm just waiting for him to pop on in and get her going. So while I'm waiting for Mel, I just wanted to show you what I got earlier this week. If I could go over here. Yes, I got my Artco
Hello, can you hear me?
Drone Solution sign from Jim Wallace, Mr. Graphic. So, thank you very much, Jim. So, let's check over here on YouTube, and you are in, but I don't see you, Mel. Do you have your camera on? I do not see you. You're in, but there's no camera.
Can you hear me, Art?
I can hear you. I can hear you, but I cannot see you.
Well, you should be able to.
Just waiting for you to show up in that box next to me.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to have enough internet power to do this. I might be in trouble here.
Oh boy. I
Because I'm not receiving your signal anymore. And so because I'm not receiving your signal, I'm not able to see the input screen, so I don't know if you can see me or not.
no, I cannot see you.
Well, you just gotta love internet, by God.
Yeah.
Sucky internet.
Oh boy. I think you went over on your minutes last night.
Nah, I didn't go over on my minutes.
Yeah. Well, you blew up something.
I blew up something. Yeah, Greg, why don't you go ahead and jump in and I'll jump out, okay?
All right. Okay. I'll put
We'll see
the.
if Greg's works any better because this obviously isn't going to work on my end. So,
All right. Well, I'll see if I
but
can
I
get
tried.
somebody.
Thanks, Art, for inviting me.
You're welcome.
I'll stick around and chat.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks,
All
Mel.
right, bye bye. Okay, I'm logging out right now.
Sounds good. Uh, hey, okay, we got Greg Khunert in. Hey, Greg, if you want to, you could uh, you could pop on in, and we'll try to get you on. Hello, Claude. Thanks for joining the show. Phantom Hodges Drone. Welcome to the show. And who else is in? Above and Beyond. Great. Mr. Mike T-Man. Just waiting for Greg to see if we could get him on. Maybe this will work out, and we'll have Greg Khunert on. Anyway, while we're waiting, I wanted to show you my other cool thing that I got in the mail this week. This is my prize that I got from Ready Set Drone when I answered the question correctly, which was, what was the make and model of the car in the picture? And I remembered from a couple days before when he was on, I think it was the Bucket List Boys at Coast to Coast Drones. He had mentioned a car they had in high school, which was I believe a '67 Buick Electra. Let me go back in. Hello, April. Welcome to the show. Just having problems with my guests. Their internet's not working. I originally had Oz by Drone booked for tonight, but he's having issues with his internet. So what I will do real quick, ooh, I hear something. Maybe we got Greg on.
I think so. G'day, mate.
Oh, good day. All right, we got Greg Khunert on the show. Awesome. That makes me happy. Magadana Maga, Greg.
And to you too. Let me get headphones.
Hey, I want to make, yeah, go ahead and get your headphones on. I've got something a little special just for you.
There we go, that's better.
Alrighty, let's see, where is that? Okay, we'll put that in, and this is a little something that I got for you since you are from Australia. You'll get a kick out of this.
You hear that in the morning, Arthur? Every morning.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
you know the song.
I live on a river, and the intro to the show that I have, that's me flying over the river there, and yeah, there's a lot of nature and wildlife happening out there, and the kookaburras are one of them. One of my neighbours likes to leave them a few little bits of food every day, which kind of encourages them, which is fine, but yeah, they're noisy. So it's between the kookaburras, or you've got the parrots, the sulfur-crested parrots, making their noise all the time.
Right.
And many, many other birds. It's quite noisy at times.
Right.
But that's all good.
Yeah, it seems that the birds over in your area are a bit more colorful than the ones in our area, especially here in Colorado, you got the lorikeets and the cockatiels and cockatoos and
The rosella's a nice, pretty one. We were out the other day, and my wife was hearing this noise, but she didn't know where it was or what it was, and I pointed up in the tree, and she loved the colours. But you know what was so funny? Yesterday morning, just before I was getting ready for my show yesterday, I saw what looked, I can only describe it as a turkey. I don't know what other type of bird it was that somehow got into my backyard, and I was getting the camera ready, but it decided to leave. But it was big. It was very big.
Yeah. Yeah, we have them here in Colorado. Wild turkeys. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Greg, tell us a little bit about yourself and your show. And I hear you're quite the nerd. So did you have a pocket protector in high school with your pencils and calculator?
During my school days. Oh, by the way, sorry if the picture is a little bit jerky. It looks very jerky on the screen.
Right.
The internet in Australia, there's been a fault in my area reported today, so not much I can do about it. But let me see. School days, yeah, I was a musician. I didn't know I was going to get into computers.
Right.
I did that. There was kind of the computer club. It wasn't compulsory back then, but I started playing with computers and Apple IIes and all of that kind of fun stuff. And the Apple Lisa they had back then at our school. Yes, we had a Lisa.
Wow.
And we had a I think it was an Apple 2GS, I think it was called. Those were the days, and that was fun.
Cool.
I think our school was pretty ahead of a lot of places, and that was good. And yeah, it taught me, and I got addicted to computers, and I was having fun with them. And then one Christmas, my parents were buying Christmas gifts, and I was at my grandparents' house, and I happened to be going to get something out of the car from my parents. Not knowing that our Christmas gifts were in the car. So one of the gifts was a Sega SC3000 computer that my parents had bought for me. And I also saw a dog basket for my sister. So we both knew what we were getting that year.
My first computer was a Timex Sinclair 1000.
Okay.
And
I remember the Sinclair Spectrums.
Yep. It's similar to that. It was about the size of a paperback book, and it had a touch key keypad, which was really funky. And one of my first upgrades was I upgraded it to a regular type keyboard, and that was a simple add-on. And I think I added some more memory to it. I think I got it up to like 64K, which was a lot of memory. And you had to store your program on a cassette tape.
I remember it well.
Yep.
My Sega had 64K of RAM by default out of the box as well, but I went further and I got this thing called, back then it was called a super control station. So instead of using those cassette tapes, I now had a floppy disk. Although it wasn't floppy, it was not a 5.5, not a 3 1/4, it was a 3-inch disc. Something that's very rare. They were used a bit in the music industry. I believe some Roland MIDI sequencers used them, but also this Sega computer used them back then. So those were the days. And then after that, by the way, that computer, when I upgraded it with that control station, I then got 80K of RAM. Somehow it was a weird, unusual number, and it was doing page switching and all that.
Right.
But after that, I got a new machine, and I bought something secondhand. And the brand name of the computer was a System 1.
Oh boy. Never heard that.
It was built and designed in downtown. It was truly a homebrew computer.
Wow.
It was a CPM machine.
Uh-huh.
For those of you who remember back that far, that was before Windows, before MS-DOS.
Yep.
That's what happened before. And yeah, so this system, I started a bulletin board service on it.
Wow.
And I had phone lines. As a teenager, getting my phone lines in my own name into my home, my parents' home. And that was pretty cool. And then that went well and it was popular. Started off as a 300 baud modem and then got faster, 2400, and then kept on going faster. And by the end, I had 40 phone lines running into the family room at my parents' house.
Oh my. Wow.
And 30,000 subscribers. So those were the
after the time at Sinclair, I didn't have anything for a long time until about 92. I got what was a IBM. It was before the 286. I think it was. It's called an XT, and I upgraded that as much as I could, and I skipped from the 286 into a 386 and the 486 and the first Pentiums, and I loved building computers. It was a lot of fun. It was fun learning how to solve problems. If you had an issue with something, I had a computer geek friend, and I'd call him up and say, "Hey, I'm having a problem with this," and he would say, "Well, try this or try that," and I'd learn how to get it up and running.
Yeah, so same kind of thing. I mean, I'd been playing with computers all my life. Then I went to uni, and I didn't study music after school. Look, I used to teach music privately, but it wasn't going to be my profession. So I went to uni and went and studied computer business systems and then computer science and so on, and then went into the IT industry. All the same time, my bulletin board thing that I had grew, and then I started an internet company, and that grew, and I sold that before the tech crash, and then while still working in the IT industry, and then I went and I was headhunted for a company where I was one of the first 20 employees to go and build what is now Australia's third largest network in the country.
Wow, nice.
Or second largest. I can't remember the rankings, but they're up there. So that was pretty cool.
Right around the time when the .com bubble was about to burst, that was when I was studying to get my my Microsoft certification, and I was taking classes at like a community college type place, and I learned how to design webs and putting computers together. That was an easy class, and then programming with Java. Boy, that was probably one of the toughest classes I took. And then I had to learn networking, so I worked in Unix and know a lot about protocols and TCP/IP, all that.
Come on. Let me give you a test. I'm going to give you a test now. See how much you remembered. Do you remember the OSI model? Have you heard of that term before?
OSI model. Oh God, no, I don't.
Standards, it's Open Systems Interconnect model, where they've got a 7-layer model.
Right.
Does that ring a bell?
No.
Okay. I definitely win in the Geek Awards then.
Yeah. But back in high school, we had a mainframe computer, and we had CRTs hooked up to it, and we also had what's called a deck writer, where you typed on paper, and that was like your monitor there. And this is like 78, 79. That's back in the olden days for you.
Well, I don't
But
know about that.
One of my
Put it this
first
way. Put it this
programs
way.
I wrote.
During that kind of period, I went to my father's office. He worked in the printing industry,
Oh,
and I was always fascinated. I went in there, and they had this big mega supercomputer thing
right.
with all of its punch cards going
Yeah.
around everywhere, and the big disc cartridges, and
Yeah.
so that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was back then I was into guitars and building guitars, so I wrote a program in BASIC to calculate a fret intervals to a given scale length,
Okay.
and that was a lot of fun. I mean, that took me a lot of work to figure out how to get the go tos and all that jazz in BASIC, but after I got it working, I'm like, holy moly, this thing works. Cool.
I wrote one. I wrote lots of software over the years. One I wrote that was one of my early ones was a game called Color Cubes, and I sold that to Sega. So
cool.
They bought it, but the problem was at that exact time, it was just before the tech crash and all of that kind of stuff, and it was never released. So.
Oh man.
Yeah.
No, jeez.
I see in your chat room there we've got someone, April. She's your niece?
Yes, she is.
Based where? In the US or elsewhere?
Yes, she is not too far from me. She's a few miles away from me, or kilometers for you folks down there. And she will be 50 in November. So she's catching up to you, Greg.
Excuse me? I'm not 50 yet. Anyway. I'm 49.
Okay, yeah.
No, true.
Keep that our
true.
secret, Greg.
True. Yeah.
So
anyway, it's all good.
Tell us about you have a place in the Philippines. Tell us a little bit about that, and also tell us a little bit about how you met your Filipina, your asawa.
Yeah, my beautiful bride. I met her through a business. So I've got a company, and we do software development kind of stuff,
Right.
mainly for internet providers and web hosting providers. And if you can imagine, I've got my own app store, and in that app store, we got lots of apps and all that kind of stuff. I like doing the tech stuff, but I didn't like doing the rest of it. So I looked around and checked on a few forums for an offshore resource, because not a big enough company to go and hire people in Australia. So I said, let's go and get someone else. And
Right. Cool.
found this person. This person was doing magic for my company, so that was all good. And then later on for the day job, I happened to go to the Philippines.
Oh, nice.
And I said I'd be stupid not to go and try and meet this person. And I met her, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Mm.
So your hacienda is in Cavite, isn't it?
Cavite, yeah. So Cavite is kind of like a state on Luzon, which is the main island.
Right.
And within Cavite, there's a place called Amadeo, which is the town. And within the town, there's a barangay, is what they call it, but like
Right.
subdivision, you could call it in a lot of other places, called Dagatan. And Dagatan is where my wife has a house that she had built over there previously, and that was kind of on the ancestral land. And my sister-in-law, one of them's built a small hotel there, so I did all of the IT for the hotel, and yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Beautiful place.
Yeah, it is a beautiful country. I was there a couple years ago to meet my Philippine girlfriend, and she lived in, at that time, Das Marinas.
Which is very, very close. It's the local shopping centre that we go to whenever I'm staying in the
Right.
Philippines. We go. You don't say that. You don't say that yet. You call it Dasma. Come on, be a local.
And so uh, we went from there. We went to Puerto Galera, which is on the island of Mindoro, where you take a what's called a banta boat from Batanga City over to Puerto Galera, and it's about a 45, 60-minute ride out there. So that was an interesting adventure for me, for my girlfriend. It was like, you know.
Excuse me, I got my allergies acting up a bit today. I keep scratching my nose. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I have the
I
same
need to get
problem.
Can you excuse me for like 1 minute? I'll be back. Hang on.
Sure, that'd be
I'll get
fine.
something to make it calm down.
All right, do something about that. Yes, Claude. I'm always in trouble with my niece. She's almost like a little sister. Uh, Good night, April. Thanks for coming into the live stream. Enjoy your dinner. Jim Wallace, thank you for the sign. It's over there on my bookshelf back there. So, all right, DumbTube, welcome to the show. All right, we got somebody from the UK in the house. All right. Tonight we've got a guest from Australia.
Woohoo!
And Greg Khunert, who has a YouTube show called Oz by Drone.
Yeah. So let me tell you the very quick condensed version of where all of that started. And we talked a little bit about it yesterday when Ken was on my show. So
right.
It started initially, my wife bought me a drone. She bought me a toy drone from Kmart.
Wow.
Went and flew it, had some fun with that. I actually had it for a decent amount of time, but one day Buzzy the drone flew too high.
Uh-oh.
And lost signal, and it went off into the bush. One thing I will say, even though you've had those couple of bad experiences and crashes, I'm pleased to say that the location where it crashed was in bushland, so nothing stupid.
Oh, okay.
But
well, that's good.
Then the next one on its maiden flight, it was meant to have a return to home function. It wasn't a GPS return to home. It was kind of like
a barometric
optical flow kind of thing. It was meant to know where it was.
Right.
But it lost its way somehow. Don't know how, don't know why. On the maiden flight, the very first time.
Ouch. Ouch.
So after that, I said, no, not going to do that again. I'm going to get a decent drone with a GPS module, and I got a DJI and never looked back since.
You probably did a lot of crikey a lot after that happened.
Well, I'm sure there's some American type words that you don't say. Crikey is not one that I use very often.
Well,
but yeah, never looked back since.
Huh?
Never looked back since. Love the P4P. While I was doing all of the above, though, I started, how did my channel start? I started looking at drone channels, liked what Ken was doing.
Right.
Saw him start his YouTube live show.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really cool. I thought, gee, that's really cool. And, I'd done all of this bulletin board and internet company and forums and all that kind of stuff. So
Right.
I'd had all that background in media and communications over years, and I thought, well, let's try this YouTube thing out. So I said, let's go and do it, and the rest is history. I'm not a big channel like Ken, but I'm loving it. I enjoy doing it. It's not about the number of viewers,
Right.
but it is as well. You know what I mean? You don't want to be talking to an echo chamber. You do want to have people watching. But
you got to remember, Ken, it's a marathon and not a sprint.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I'm having fun.
Yeah, so am I. I was in the entertainment business for 25 years as a stand-up comedian, and I started a radio show on the internet. It was a conservative talk show that I started back in 2011, and I did that for a couple years. And then I met a gal, and so my interest kind of, took me in another direction. So I was on hiatus for that, and then I brought it back on Facebook Live, and I did a little bit on YouTube, and almost 2 years ago, I bought my first drone, which was a Bugs 3. And I already had a GoPro Hero 3, so I didn't need to buy the camera, so it was a little cheaper. Got that, and that doesn't have GPS on it. And boy, it was quite an eye opener. But the more I flew it, the better I got, and then I finally saved up to get my first DJI, which was a Phantom 3 Standard, and flew that and just loved that. I started fixing drones. I would buy broken drones on eBay, fix them up, sell them, make a few bucks so I could do some upgrades to the Standard. And then last August, I was flying it around one of my favorite fishing holes. I wanted to do an update on the area where I fish because I wanted to show the greenery and all that stuff. Well, I grabbed the wrong battery. I used the battery that I used the day before, and as soon as I got out there, like 5 minutes into it, I hear this beep, 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 return to home. I'm like going, holy crap. And it was near some bushes and trees, and that was it. It was gone, and it was in a spot where I couldn't get to. I've searched for it a couple times, and I'm pretty sure it did land on land, but I think what happened was some kids probably found it, and who knows what they did with it.
Okay.
They might have blown it up, or who knows. But
maybe Chris Rollins found it and blew it up.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And then I got another Phantom 3 Standard that I fixed up and flew, and that was the video where you see me getting out of my apartment and going up the stairs, and that led into a big adventure for me, which I got to meet a lot of folks in the drone community, and ended up getting a Mavic Air with extra batteries, and I was just blown away by it. And another viewer sent me a DJI Tello to fly around. I'm like going, holy cow. And I eventually...
Because you can just sling it over your shoulder, so that makes it really easy for you with that.
Yeah, that's right. And let's see. Oh, I sold the Phantom Standard and got a Phantom Advanced. And also these guys got me a hard case for it with wheels on it. I'm like, going, wow, you
You
guys
know what you
really
need, right? Have you
just
seen?
awesome.
I can't remember her name. There's a YouTube creator out of China, something Wu.
Uh huh.
I can't remember her name, but anyway, she makes things with all 3D printers and all
Oh,
sorts of other stuff. And she
nice.
also tests a lot of stuff. And she's got this really cool device, like that's a suitcase that follows her around when she's doing stuff. So you just wear the watch, and it's got a Bluetooth and or GPS in it, and you go where you want to go, and the suitcase will just follow you around. That would be super cool for you because you put
Yeah.
your drone and your equipment in there, and you just go where you want to go, and
Oh,
your
that
stuff
would
will
be
follow you
awesome.
along behind. That'd be cool.
Yeah, especially if I'm traveling, I could take that to the airport, and
Yeah.
here I am walking along, and people see my luggage following me around. Say, what the heck is going on there? But
Anyway,
the Mavic Air will be a lot more practical for traveling because I could throw it into a backpack with the charger and the batteries and all that stuff, and then then I'm off. But I plan to be back to the Philippines next February.
yeah. I don't know when I'll go back. I know I've got a you've got an exclusive here. You're the first to hear it. You ready for it?
Okay.
Drum roll. Oz by Drone is going on tour.
Oh, it is cool.
We're going to Korea.
Oh, awesome, awesome.
Yeah, so I'll be going to Korea for a couple of weeks in April.
Oh,
We're
nice.
going to have 1 week where um, I might still do a live stream from the airport as we're departing, but I'm actually departing on a show day, so no show
Right.
on that day. But the following week, I'll do a live stream from Korea if I can get some bandwidth. Don't know yet, but
Ah,
we'll try. Um,
well, it, it,
and
it,
Metro drones, just to answer your question, yes.
it's a beautiful country there. I was there in '95. I was part of a USO type show entertaining our troops. First we
Mm,
went to Japan and we went to Misawa, which is on the northern end of Honshu, and then we went down to a couple bases that are west of Tokyo. We went to Atsugi and Yokota. And the funny thing
yeah,
about Atsugi is my father was stationed there 50 years before.
yeah,
And he was part
okay.
of the occupation force in 1945, which
Okay.
was cool. And that's probably where I got my interest in the Philippines because he talked
Mm,
about the Philippines and his adventure in World War II. He went to
mm.
Australia, and I believe they went to now is Brisbane north of you, or is that on the other coast?
Yes, Brisbane is north.
Okay, so that's where he went first, and then he was part of the island hopping campaign where they went to Biak and Newham and uh, Hollandia and
Mm,
Oral Bay, and then he wound up in the Philippines. They went to Leyte, and then they went from there. They went to Clark Airfield, which is near the city of Angeles, which is quite a bit north of Manila there,
yeah,
and it's right near Mount Pinatubo. And then
okay.
from there, he went to Okinawa, and the war was pretty much over by then. And then they sent him up to Japan. He was in radio and radar repair for
Mm,
the Army Air Force.
okay.
So that's how I got my introduction into to Asia. And I thought, well,
Yeah, look, I've worked in the Asia Pacific region. Obviously, Australia is part of the bigger region, but
right,
in my most recent job, I went to a lot of countries. I was in charge of the Asia Pacific region for
nice.
my business unit. So Japan, Thailand, Philippines, Korea. I didn't go to China for work, but I have traveled there for other things. I went to India a number of
Oh,
times.
nice.
I went to Singapore.
Mm, cool.
So yeah, it's interesting. Like a lot of people in Australia dream of their tourist destination as being Europe. Um, but because of my work-related travel, I a lot of Asian-related travel and tourism.
Right, right.
Um, but I'm planning on doing something in Europe um, late this year.
There you
Planning it.
go.
We'll see how we go.
Maybe you'll run into some Khunerts in England.
It came from South Africa most recently, and before that, it came from Germany. So
Oh, okay. Yeah,
yeah.
okay. Got that.
Mm.
Cool. Yeah, my
Yeah.
family, we're from Sweden, the Carlsons. We came over to the United States in 1888, and my English ancestors on my dad's side, they came over in 1740, and they were one of the founders of a town called Stamford, Connecticut, which is not far from New York City.
Okay.
And that that family slowly moved on west, and we made it out here to Denver.
Okay. Speaking of
Um,
family tree, I just thought I'd look it up. I did my family tree a while back,
wow, nice.
and I'm just going to look it up, see if I can find out as far back as I can go. You keep talking for a bit. Sorry,
All
I
right.
interrupted. You keep talking for a bit.
Yeah, on my mom's side, her last name is Ziegler, so I was able to trace their family back to Germany, and they came over to this country and they settled in Pennsylvania, and I guess part of the family went off to Canada, and then the rest of them came out to the Midwest, Illinois and Iowa area. I also
Okay.
found out I have ancestors in Hawaii. Turns out
Okay.
the Smith clan in Stamford, Connecticut, uh, went to Hawaii in the 1840s as part of the mission there, and one of my ancestors became a legislator for the royal, uh, uh, government. And this is before Hawaii was annexed by the United States. And after annexation, he was part of the territory of Hawaii's legislative body. So we've got kind of bigwig people in Hawaii.
Okay.
So found
I'm
out I
I'm
had ancestors that fought in the Civil War and the Revolutionary War. And my grandfather was drafted during World War One, but never got sent to Europe. But his brother Louis was sent to Europe, and he was at the Battle of Chateau Thierry and
mhm.
Belleau Wood, where he was wounded and survived the gas attack, and and came back home, which was great. Got a Purple Heart, a Croix de Guerre, and all sorts of neat little ribbons. I found a photo of him in his army uniform, his dress uniform with all his medals. That was pretty cool. Hmm.
I just had a look back. And
Right.
in our family tree, the earliest reference that we've been able to find is a marriage in 1492
Wow.
between a gentleman by the name of Johannes Crew de Nantwich and Margarita Filia Ramfulli. And this is on my mother's side.
Wow.
And yeah, we had a, where is it? I'll tell you some really cool ones in there. It's
Oh.
just so many. There was
You,
like a head of a court, like there was a judge in there.
oh, nice.
And
You
yeah,
have
it's
any
been a long time
royal
since I looked at
blood
it.
in you, Greg?
Possibly, but yeah. Look,
Uh,
through my father's side, technically you can call me Baron von Khunert, and I've got a pile of
ah.
rubble that used to be the family castle over in Germany somewhere. So you will bow before me. Thank you, citizen.
Oh. Well, I have a little bit. Well, I have some ancestry in the Plantagenet family.
Okay.
You probably don't remember who the Plantagenet. That's William of Orange, Battle of Hastings.
Mm,
I know I'm
pass.
giving you a history lesson, and you're like, well, no.
Yeah.
He was the frog that conquered England.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I'll stop looking through the family tree, but yeah, there's some interesting stuff if you dig back in there. I had fun with it, researching it
Right.
a while back.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really interested in history, and over on my regular channel, I
Mm,
I have quite a few channels, history channels, and the history guy is one of them, and I'm also interested in science, like
mm,
space travel and airplanes. So I've got quite a few of those channels on there too.
yeah. Just reading
Hmm.
some of the chat. Phantom Hodges drone asked, "Am I taking my drone with me?" Yes, that is my intent. And Lloyd Mendenhall is talking about Richard the Third. Oh, sorry, the Third. Richard the Third. Sorry, I couldn't resist. So is that a relative of yours, Mr. Mendenhall, Richard the Third? Third? Anyway,
Hey, we gotta get Ken to come over to the Philippines and have him try some balut.
yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. He may
uh,
travel there, but I don't think he's going to try that.
I might have to have a lot of San Miguel in me to even try a
Mhm.
balut. But I have tried some of the native food there, and it's quite good. I've even made some of it here at my house. I made
Yeah.
pancit and uh, torta talong. Have you ever had
Hmm.
that?
No, I haven't had that one. Don't know
That
that
is
one.
that is eggplant omelet.
Okay. I don't like eggplant at the best of times, so yeah, pass on that one.
Okay. Have you
Mhm.
had chicken or pork adobo?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Haven't had that
And
yet.
have you've been to Inasal?
To where?
Inasal, a restaurant in the Philippines when you've been over there before? It's a
Uh,
famous chicken restaurant chain.
no, no, I haven't been there. I want to try Jollibee next time I'm there.
Oh no, no, no! Forget Jollibee. Go to Inasal.
Okay.
I don't like
Will do.
Jollibee. I don't like the flavor that they have in their stuff there, but that chicken's good. And you have calamansi. You've tried
Yeah,
calamansi on different food? Yeah.
yeah.
We
It's
got a
kind of
calamansi tree in the backyard. Where would you be without it?
right, right, right.
Yeah.
I've had milkfish, uh, where my girlfriend stuffs it with the vegetables, and I mean, it was good, but the only problem with milkfish is it's got a lot of fine bones in it, and I don't like that. So
Yeah, I'm not a seafood guy myself.
yeah, well, I like seafood and I like chicken, and I
Although
like
I do go on a seafood diet. I seafood and I eat it.
there you go, there you go. And well, I've got a goddaughter that lives in Davao City down in
Hmm.
Mindanao that I'm gonna go visit when I'm out there. So now I've got to. Not only do I have to learn Tagalog, I've got to learn Visayan.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Anyway, it's all good.
so we got a new uh, feature here in this show called Stump the Aussie.
Oh, just for me.
And so what we're going to do is
No, no,
we're
no,
going
no, 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 no. No, no, no. If
to.
you're going to do something with a stump in it, the stump is trademarked. But I
Oh,
do give you authority. I do give you authority to use yank the stump.
yank the stump. Okay.
You're going to yank it out from underneath me as just imagine I'm standing on a stump and you're going to yank it out from underneath me and I'm going to fall over. There you go.
All right, we're going to play a word game where I will say the American way we say it, and you will say how you say it in Australia. And there is a certain metal which is very light, and we say aluminum.
How is it spelt? How is this word
It's spelled the
spelt?
same way.
Well, no, I just want to make clear. I would like you to spell it out.
Oh God! Now I got to go over the.
Because see, the word that you just pronounced, aluminum, is missing one of the vowels that's in the word when you spell it out. Come on.
Aluminum. Aluminum.
Hang on, I think you're spelling it incorrectly. You're missing a vowel.
We got aluminum sulfate. A L M
The
I
actual
N
correct
U M.
spelling, and this is American and Australian and British English. The spelling is Aluminum. That's the correct spelling.
This
Now,
is.
the guy who invented the
Oh,
chemical, there
now
was
okay.
actually a controversy.
At Wikipedia, yeah, it is spelled that. But
Yeah.
the I is silent like the P in swimming, Greg.
So the guy who invented and discovered the element,
Right.
let me see. I actually researched this
What's his
because
name? Al.
where was it?
Hey, Al, look at this minium here. He really lights
Following
up.
like the tropical world person.
What is
So Humphrey made a
aluminum?
bit of a mess. Here we go. So Humphrey made a bit of a mess when naming this new element. At first, he spelt it Alumium, which is aluminum, and that was in 1807. And
Right.
then he changed it to aluminum, which is your spelling, and then finally in 1812 he changed it to aluminium. So kind of like everyone else has already gone to metric and used kilometers and centimeters and degrees Celsius, and you're still on the Gaelic system, the pre-Reformation system. You still can't get your simple elements changed as well, even though the rest of the world has moved on. Is that what you're talking about? Did I get you?
Okay, now, what's the name of the place where you have all this equipment for exercising? Uh, what do you call that place?
The gym.
The full. What's the?
We don't use a full word. We call it a gym.
Well, we call it a gym, but we say gymnasium. And you guys say gymnasium.
No, we don't.
I've heard, hey, I've heard it.
No. Gymnasium is about the same. If we were going to use the full word, I've never heard of gymnasium. Never, ever, ever.
Okay, and here is.
Give me another one.
All right. Okay. Okay. To give you an example, the royal family is a
Monarchy.
no. What do you call when you have a succession of families in that starts with the letter D?
Democracy?
No, there's no. We say dynasty. You guys say
Dynasty.
dynasty.
Well, you've got to pick the better word. I don't call that a dynasty. Dynasty was a TV show with a bunch of Yankees on it again who didn't know who didn't know how to pronounce it. Come on.
Okay. Okay. A word that describes something that's all messed up. It's a. We say controversy. And you guys say
Controversy. Some people say that controversy.
See,
it's a bit of both.
Another one.
It's a bit of both. That one. I'll accept either over here.
Okay, because do you know who Simon Whistler is?
Nah.
He's a vlogger on YouTube where they do history stuff, and
Yeah.
I listen to him and I'm like going, what's that word? He says controversy. What?
Is he an Aussie? No, he's just not American.
England. He's from England.
Yeah, like I said, he's just not American where they pronounce the words wrong.
There you
I mean,
go.
let's face it. The language is called English. Right? It came from England. They would know how to say these words. But anyway.
Then how come the Filipino people sound like us?
I'll try to be diplomatically correct here. No, I won't. Because you invaded them. No, you didn't invade them. You colonized. No, you didn't do that either. You went there and at the end of the day,
liberated.
I'm hassling. Yeah, I know.
Then
Look, can I just say, at the end of you annexed them, yeah. At the end of the day, it was a bad situation. The people who were ruling the roost at the time, and another group of people came in. The Filipino themselves want to go back to where they were. It's the same kind of thing in a lot of places where, you know, England and Hong Kong and all of those kind of things. And they, right. They don't want to necessarily be under the thumb from their original China in the case of Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. They want to be able to say, we are our own people now, but unfortunately China's not letting them do that, but that's another story. And this is not a political show, but anyway.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I know a little bit of the Philippine history. The guy that founded the Philippines was Ferdinand Magellan, who was killed right off the shore of the island of Cebu by the men of the king's name was Lapu-Lapu. And evidently Magellan, was talking to all the wrong people over on the island of Cebu, and he wanted to talk to the chief over on Mactan, and he said, sure, come on over. And the water's pretty shallow there, so the soldiers took off all their armor, and they decided they were going to wade across, and that's when they were attacked and killed.
Yeah.
And so the island of the Philippines became a possession of Spain for over 300 years until we came along and we decided, you know what,
we want
you
it.
guys
We want a
blew
base.
up
We
our
want our
ship.
position. Yeah. Look, it was a good place strategically to have a base for that part
Yeah.
of the world as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know,
Yep. Yeah,
but anyway.
we had a base there, and we had a base in Hawaii, so we did have some influence in in Asia. So
Yeah.
anyway,
But I mean, no matter where you go, there was places in the world that have been colonized as back from the sky, as saying
Right.
Columbus discovered land with people on it.
right. Mm-hmm.
Right? At the end of the day, the initial moving out and westernization of the world had some things which if we look at it through our eye today, we will say, well, yeah, you invaded those people. And, you know, people say the same thing, you know, the English invaded Australia, right? So there were people here, there were native people here before. If that hadn't happened, if you gave the people that were originally there and you said to them, you could have more of what you've already got, or you can have what we now know today as the Western modern day culture.
That's right.
Which would they pick? They would pick the modern day culture. But it's really frustrating. And I don't want to get, again, too political about this, but it annoys me sometimes where people are saying we've got to apologise for this and that, and we've got to have these people involved in our parliament automatically getting seats in parliament and the voice of the Aboriginal people and all of these kind of things.
Right.
Look, be one people.
Well,
get over it. It's happened. We don't have to. Anyway.
Well, the Philippines, before the Spanish arrived, they've been invaded by numerous peoples, like from China and Indonesia, and that's how you have the Muslim population mostly in Mindanao, because they're right close to Indonesia, and and you have that happening because, you know, the original inhabitants of the Philippines are what they're called the Negros, and they were dark skinned, and they had curly hair. They were short people. They were probably very similar to the Aborigines of Australia. And then these people started coming in either from China or from Malaysia, Indonesia, and that started to change the culture of the islands there. And then the Spanish came in and brought Western influence. And one thing I've noticed about the Filipino people is they look a lot like the Hispanic people here in the United States, and they also look a lot like the people of Malaysia and Indonesia. Because
I'm just reading back from the sky saying, get over the victim mentality. I just wish people could be people and not be this anyway. Free ride with the victim card, all of the identity politics stuff.
That's right. Well, Greg.
Again, just before we go, just to my point, right? If you look back and you say, here's this Aboriginal person from before Australia was colonised, and you gave them the choice, they definitely pick the colonised outcome. It may not have been a good journey. Yes, we did some things bad back then in terms of how we treated some people, but we can't change the past. If you had a choice of no colonisation or colonisation, they would all pick the colonisation, even if they had to go through the bad stuff. That's what I believe. And let's move on and be happy people.
I agree. All right.
Welcome to Art's Politics Show.
Yeah, I have several Aussie friends on Facebook, and you ought to hear some a lot of the same stuff that you're saying, you know.
Mm.
So, but
Yeah.
you brought up over the last few episodes on your show about drones being shot down, and Lloyd
They're being
Mendenhall.
discriminated against. The drones are being discriminated against. All of these people victimizing them and shooting them out of the sky. It's just not right.
But Greg, I thought you guys don't have guns over there.
Yeah, I understand that the responsible parties are American citizens.
Yeah.
No response to that one. No, seriously, the two drone shootings that we know about, one of them is a desirable guy who had some guns. They were illegal weapons, just to let people in America know how all of this happened. Way back when, you could have weapons, you could have guns, you could have them. They didn't have to be registered. And then the law was changed because we had the Port Arthur massacre, and they were then illegal, and you had to license them, you had to register them. And the government said, you know, to make it fair, because you've got this stuff that you bought legally in the past, so that you are not financially worse off as a
Right.
result of our change in the law, we're going to buy the gun off you. We will buy back those guns. So the government gave out lots and lots and lots of money and bought these guns off people. But there are some people who decided to keep them illegally. They're in cupboards because there was no registration before.
Right.
We don't know where they were.
Mm-hmm.
So is it possible that there are still guns in circulation before the buyback and before our current laws? Yes. Yeah. Are they legal? No. Whenever they get seen or found, are they taken out of circulation? Yes. Mm-hmm. Do new guns come into the country? Possibly. And in fact, the government did find some stuff before where new guns were coming in parts, and they're a little bit at a time, and a little bit and putting them together.
Right.
But they found that and they stopped that. So
Mm-hmm.
largely speaking, you cannot buy guns in Australia unless you have a firearms license and a permit
Right.
to do that. And you can only do that if you are a security guard generally, or a firearm, shooting range kind of guy. You can
Right.
own them in that circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're a farmer and you have a legitimate need as part of, killing things that jump out of rabbit holes or whatever it might be on your
Yeah.
farm.
Yep.
Those are legitimate reasons to own them, but general people, no,
Mm-hmm.
don't need it.
Well, and plus, your country is quite a bit smaller than the United States, so.
How much? How much smaller?
Well, you guys are what, 30 million people, 35 million people?
Yeah, but if you have a look at the land size, we're actually bigger than a lot of people think.
Yeah, in land mass, you guys are a pretty big country, but in United States, we're almost 350 million people, which would make it virtually impossible to get rid of every gun in this country.
I'm just having a look out of interest at a little picture of, if you Google Australia land size versus America, and it comes up with a thing, and you overlay Australia on top of America, and we're pretty close.
Yep.
We're the sixth largest land area, yeah.
Right. Here's a little bit of trivia for you. Did you know the Philippines, their whole land mass is the same size as the state of Colorado? We have 8 million people here, where the Philippines has 104 million people. That's a lot of people there.
Yeah, it's very, very dense population.
Yep.
Hey, since we got onto gun laws, what's your personal view? If you were coming to Australia and you were going to live here,
right,
and you knew already before you came here that our crime rate and a lot of other statistics, and I don't want to go and quote every single one of them, I've looked at them before, but
right,
generally speaking, the crime rate per head of population is lower than the US. Would you give up the idea of owning a gun if it meant living in the utopian Australian paradise?
I'd have to think about that. If I was living in an urban area, I probably would. Oh boy, I don't know. That's a tough.
Yeah, look, for me personally, I understand how America got to where it is, right? So there's a lot of history and things that have happened in its past.
Right.
I understand why your forefathers put those things in the Constitution, right? So you've had revolutions and things happening in your country, and you want to make sure that you can defend yourself should it happen again.
Right.
Fine. These kind of battles are never going to happen again, right? So the original reason, look, this is my belief. Let me show you. That type of battle I don't think is going to happen again. If you've got a good democracy now, and you can throw someone out.
Greg, we're not a democracy.
Really?
We're a republic with democratic
Do you vote for your elected representatives?
That's true, but we're not a true full-blooded democracy. We have it's a republic with representation. Otherwise, you would have minorities that would be making all the decisions, and this way, this kind of keeps government in check. Otherwise, you'd have government just running amok.
So can I just give you my clarification? Democracy versus a republic. I believe that anytime your elected representatives are elected, it is a democracy. Now, how that voting system works, republic versus something else, that's getting into the detail. But at the end of the day, America is a democracy. Your representatives are elected. Are they representative of every minority? No. And is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. You need to try and fix the old 80-20 rule. You want to get 80% of the people happy. The other 20% of people that are never going to be happy, you want to make them as least unhappy as possible. But back to the question, guns. I understand how you got to where you got, but do you need to keep where you are? Do you think it is more acceptable to have a lot of the mass shooting events, or would it be more acceptable to say, hey, let's get rid of all guns if we can get rid of the mass shooting events? Is that worth it? John Howard, our former Prime Minister, that was his motivation. He said, I'm never, ever, ever, ever going to have another Port Arthur on my hands. We only had one mass shooting, and he said, never again. And I think that's the mark of a good leader.
Well, you're talking about a situation where you had someone who was unstable or had ulterior, questionable motives. You gotta put the blame on the person and not on the tool that they use. Now, to give you an example, in China, since guns are outlawed there, they've been having a lot of mass stabbings where people were being stabbed to death in public places. Now, if someone in that crowd would have had a firearm, they would have been able to put down that perpetrator and probably would have caused fewer deaths than with an unarmed individual. We've had several instances.
It's a great argument. It's a great argument, but if you just compare the statistics per head of population, Australia versus America, those stats bear them out. But having said that, you're coming from a different starting point, and that's the biggest problem that you've got. The biggest problem is that you've got so many weapons already out there, and someone who's above and beyond saying outlaw them and only outlaws will have them.
That's right.
That was the problem that people were saying in Australia. and that was the resistance. But Howard stood his ground and he got rid of them. And our law enforcement personnel, they're the only ones that have them now, or the other couple of categories that I mentioned. You can't carry them loaded. Even let's say if you're a licensed shooter and you go to shooting at a rifle range,
Right.
or whatever, gun range, you can't carry them loaded, right? So
No.
it's only for use there. So all of this kind of stuff, we just can't have them over here, and we just don't have gun crimes per head of population the same as you guys have over there. But having said that, I understand how you got there. I just don't know what the answer is. How do you actually, if you could turn back time, as the song says, if you could turn back time and get rid of the guns out of the population, leave them in the hands of responsible law enforcement, and I think that's a challenge as well, right? You've got challenges where people question law enforcement in the US. There's been shootings where law enforcement are killing people. They're a bit overzealous. I don't know how to fix it. I just know that I'm happy with what I've got.
All right. Well,
Anyway, we got very, very political.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. And to let you know, I was involved in politics for about 10 years. I ran for state house and state senate here in Colorado, and you probably saw my little blurb earlier this year where there was a vacancy on the city council that I applied for. So I follow local all the way to international politics, and because politics really shapes society and history. And you go back in past and you read about what happened and what were the circumstances of that government and how things evolved and how dynasties, or dynasties as you would say, rise and fall throughout history. So
yeah. Anyway, I'm going to disappear very soon because I'm hungry. It's after my lunchtime. Yeah.
Well, it's dinner
what I will
time.
do, just very briefly before we disappear, I want to see, where was it? Looking back at the chat, I'm trying to think of his name. Jim Wallace. If you're still there, I'm going to try and post a link. I don't know if it'll let me, but just to join my rendezvous, not to go on air or anything, but just to have a chat. Jim, can you come in and have a quick chat? Wanted to talk about something really briefly. Anyway, cool.
So, well, I just want to thank you for coming in. This is a different show, but it's mainly about drones, and sometimes, the show will take a turn and go wherever it wants to go. So I want to thank you for coming on and giving your perspective and letting us know a little bit more about you and your show, and it was a pleasure.
And you had a secret look behind the scenes today. This is the studio in the Raw. So normally I sit back on that yellow chair during the show, and that console over there is what I have available for me.
Okay, that's behind your virtual desk, I would say.
I'm sitting right now where my producer sits, where Pia sits. And that light that's sitting in the middle there, I just moved it out of the way to get into the wardrobe. Above and Beyond, you said you like the Wirecast show, the Wirecast in the Wild? Yeah, I'm going to do a few more of them.
One thing I wanted to say before I let you go is your streaming tonight is much better than the streaming I had last week with James in the Philippines. If you watched that episode, it was quite a bit jerky compared to, not that you're a jerk, but the picture is much smoother than James' picture was last week, and I hope you get to have him on your show.
I'm seeing my image being very, very jerky on what I'm looking at on the screen here. I don't know why that is. I don't know how it's coming out to YouTube though.
Well, you look a lot better than James did last week, but the motion is tolerable. So
yeah, like I said, we had an internet outage this morning, so
right.
It's still kind of in progress, and I'm still on a backup internet service.
Right. So this is what happens when you do live streaming from someone on the other side of the planet. It's not perfect, but hey, it's getting better.
Yeah. Coolio.
It'll be interesting to see what it's like in 10 or 20 years from now. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Greg, thanks for coming on, and you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing your next episode on Friday, which will be Saturday for you.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it myself. I don't know what it's going to be yet. I've got to think about who I'll have as a guest this week. Something to do.
I've got Kelly Shores coming on in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Kelly Shores from
Kelly's fun.
So that'd be
Kelly is fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I'll let you go.
Good day, mate.
As Spike would say, who and Roo.
And Roo. Okay,
Hooroo.
cool.
See you, mate.
All right, I'll go back to the countdown here. And then people could keep chatting for a while. Yep. That's all, folks.